This is Gerald Johan van Was and the educational channel related with the book Sound in Form, also with the subtitle Methodical Synesthesia, in 2 volumes available as well, with 1 volume about the theory and the other one and some practical examples, and the other one with or the second part with linguistic studies and some other studies that existed before that are related with letters, the meaning of letters and of scripts and so on. Now I introduced my book into a Facebook page on synesthesia, and strangely enough, when I had when I gave an introduction what it is about, someone said immediately, it's not about synesthesia at all. This is just about language. It's a description of the analysis of how language is functioning. And I have to disagree with that, and I will tell you why. Okay, maybe it is possible that there is a better description of this possible, but the idea of that there is some senses used that are normally not used for this purpose is also present here. As you know, here are the brains with the different functional regions there, how to get to an awareness of your environment. And normally language is lying there in that region, so how we perceive language, by hearing a little bit, by there are a couple of regions that are connected there, and that's how we perceive language and how we speak and hear and give it an order. But what I do is I deliberately make a connection, not just by association, not just by rationality, but I need something more of it. So I have to visualize something. I have to interconnect, so with this kind of a coordinating sense, which is embedded into this idea. I come to something that fits a little bit to the recognition of how we recognize faces, or how we so we remember certain patterns and recognize them, and this comes back to language. So it has to there has to be an interconnection that goes almost automatically. So there's a coordination there, but in fact I'm still dependent on the sensitivity that I keep awake, and it becomes undeliberate actually that I recognize certain things with of course there's technique involved where I interpret it visually what I do, but without the senses I can never, this sensibility, I can never get to the results, also not that quickly. So there's a cooperative way of interaction. So in fact there is a sensitive translation, not a rational translation that I have. And in that way I still think synesthesia is still a good term. Of course usually they use this term to use it for a neurological condition of undeliberate activating some other senses which are not meant to it. I do that as well. They are not. It's not meant that we associate these things differently from a different sense or sensibility, but once you interconnect them well, they start to develop themselves gradually, that they also spontaneously form a result, and these results they fit, and these results accidentally also fit with how nature itself has the intention of it to make it so that we use these letters, that we use these intentions and so on. So that's why also the results that are coming from are different. a lot of times, especially in my book. I have a lot of different results for the same things, but there's a general rule in it, and I prefer to have different visions and different angles each time, because then you keep the sensitivity intact, and that's very important, not to ever let the rationality take over. So in that way, it's not about how language is used and how we interpret it with rationally. No, it's about sensitivity, which we can control and come to rationality in the last place, not in the first place. So the different results, they do not always match, but they are all correctly interpreted. So if in fact we also try to keep a match with the original intentions in the words themselves. So with the rationality, you have the alone, you have not only difficulties to interpret this likewise, but you can also make mistakes much more easily. Not when you keep your sense or your double sense or doubling senses intact and you develop it for that way. So maybe the main focus is language, and I sense the positions then also into form as well. This is an enrichment, not just with correct associations, but I also do this automatically, so not rationally. So this takes a long time to develop, maybe, to be honest in these senses and so on. And this reminds me a little bit of what I read in the book of Ibn Arabi that I spoke about earlier. He also speaks of that rationality itself. It also digs from the same principle. So even people who are purely rational can grasp certain things. But he says, without the revelation revealing the underlying secrets, how letters themselves are connected, it cannot be discovered in full or understood in full. So the inspiration he talks about, we can also describe it as a kind of honesty in inspiration. It is about senses, but it also goes, in the way he talks about it, also goes way beyond the senses. It is also a way of sensing all the intentions that there are, not only the intentions of the people who speak or the people who make words, but also the intentions of the impulses, why nature makes these connections, these interactions, and why they are bound this way. You can never interpret it rationally, so that goes a little bit deeper than that. I can go into this spiritual or metaphysical aspect further into it as well, but that's not my subject for today. But I still want to say something about, before I continue, it really takes a lot of time and discipline before your own intuition is completely honest. Some of my other books are about that, and I prepare this kind of preparation for it, but it takes even more time before rationality is interconnected with the sensitivity in a perfect way. So without making this kind of connection, there is not such a sensitivity to understand not only the intonations in words and letters, but also how they are interconnected. It takes some time, and you can learn part of it rationally, but because if you learn the principles, but you also have to try to recognize them. It's the same with music, for instance, that you can also not learn it purely rationally. There are things that you need to understand, but you have to adapt them into your sensitivity. Language is of course also the same, but here in my method you also need a sensitivity how to make forms, how to match all the processes. We can use some basic logical principles, but you have to sense them up in the end simultaneously, and that's why I call them like synesthetic building blocks that are used similarly. All the conclusion doesn't arrive from language alone, are not about language alone. Even if language works like that, it's also the underlying principles, how language is formed in the first place, how letters are formed in the first place, and what natural language is hidden beyond that. And the sensitivity that you can develop to sense this, it is something that for a part you can deliberately program it, that you can learn it with knowledge, but you also need to develop your experience to make it really a sense that only after a while will be able to come to a rational way of thinking, not otherwise. So in the examples I said already, so I recently checked some of the last videos, and one of them was already talking about GERIEF example, and the last one also had words with GERIEF, like grain, great, grave, and so on, and they were already having a completely different explanation. Were they then not correct? No, they can match, but see things from a different angle. And I will do that one more time. I add another angle, and this angle is just an aspect that I didn't mention before, and I deliberately waited a little bit for it, because this aspect is something that you have to focus upon separately to grasp it fully, and then you can include it into your sensing it or recognizing it, and you add it into your perception so that you can recognize it, where it lies, and so on. So there are senses themselves that can sense where the letters are and how they work and how they are interconnected. Gradually you can become aware more things that are interconnected, and you sense them more easily and more quickly. So what aspect didn't I add before? The aspect of time and space. So theoretically, I can also you can learn it theoretically first. So what all the letters, they come down to this formula that I have here, and with this formula I understand every letter. So this is an underlying as a rational association that I can use for me it is more like a double check how what letters are about and where more or less they are, so that I don't make any mistakes. And the first 9 letters, they're all about our current space. It's everything is safe, and it's simply describing everything in a stable position. The next 10 letters are about everything that is changing form, is needing time to develop. It's unstable, and it can use time for it. So if you see an object or an idea or whatever which has a deformation, time is involved, you can be sure. And the last part of the last letters, they are all about finding a solution for this deformation, about this needing time, because there you can find which time is correct and which space is correct. So you interconnect them again, so that you have a kind of enlarged space and an enlarged interconnection thanks to these letters. So the G there is then the enlarged space, where you know that, okay, here it will match again. This is a space beyond myself, but here it can match the ideas that I have and the elements that I have. And the R is then the interconnection, or how it works, how everything is active into a larger context. With GR as well, larger. So how do we translate this? So here in the middle is our known stable world, and the G is the bigger space where everything is at its largest, of how we can still connect to it. So I had the letters in my last video with GR, and I will explain what they will do in time and space. So here, of course, the space is enlarged, which the enlarged space is received over time. So that is an element that the G will include with the elements of space and time. So the space will be enlarged, and this enlargement will be received over time, after a certain time. Combined with R, there is a deformation of the known space involved. Deformation or losing space or losing ground, these kind of things. And some of the elements will be lost in your own space and your own environment, and they also will be lost over time and in space. The adaptations, of course, is stretched, and we make kind of adaptation towards the larger structure, and we also know and realize that we become dependent on adapting ourselves to this enlarged space. We lose something, but what we gain also something, which is our adaptation to a larger structure. That is the G and R together. So how do we translate that now to some of the words? We had the word grave. So how do you translate that to the word grave? With V, it really has a strong direction towards the same aspect. And with the grave, we know that something indeed is lost in time. And from our environment, it's also going towards a different space and over time. So this is also even the object of the grave. Something is moved towards another space, a deeper space, and or to somewhere else. I mean, these kind of associations are recognizable in time and space in the word grave as a direction, because this direction is what it's all about. The word grief, which is lying in the effects of it, thanks to the E, it is about losing something over time. We try to adapt to it and give it a place. And with the F, and written as an F, it is also always about loose material. So this material is about loss and about winning. It's about the interaction. We try to give things a place, which is a bit difficult in this situation. The word GERIEF, also which means temporal working tools, is a Dutch word. It's the same thing, but with the we can give it a place and a practical place. But we do actually. It's not so negative in this case. We use it deliberately, so we lose some. We not just lose things undeliberately, but we deliberately say like, okay, we no longer need it this time or in this place, but maybe in some other place we can use it. That's what is the meaning of GERIEF. It's about tools, but tools that you can only use at a certain time and a certain place, and you move them deliberately into these different places and different time schedules. So I hope you enjoyed. This was some extra explanation with the time and space aspect added to it. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.